Born into an infamous Italian family, Giulia de Medici was the illegitimate daughter of Florence's first duke. Many speculated that the duke's mother was North African, giving Giulia the same heritage. Even so, all signs suggested she would grow up like a princess. But then in 1537, everything changed. Before we explore her story, I just want to give a quick shout out to my channel members, and if you want to become a member to get exclusive polls, behind the scenes, exclusive content and more, feel free to check it out. Giulia Romola di Alessandro de Medici was born sometime in the year 1535 in the city of Florence. She was the daughter of Alessandro de Medici, Duke of Florence, a man of mixed heritage, and likely the first black ruler in Renaissance Europe, as you will see. From the moment of her birth, Giulia's life was entangled in secrecy, politics and power. To better understand her story, we need to look at her origins and ancestry. Giulia came from the powerful Medici family, who started out in the Mugello region of Tuscany. They built their fortune through trade and later founded the Medici Bank, the biggest bank in Europe in the 1400s. That incredible wealth helped them rise to power in Florence, especially under Cosimo de' Medici and his grandson, Lorenzo the Magnificent. Yet, they were still citizens in name, but this would all change in 1532. Giulia's father, Alessandro de Medici, was born in Florence in 1510. Official records list his father as Lorenzo di Piero de' Medici, Duke of Urbino, linking him directly to the main Medici line. But many historians argue that Alessandro was actually the illegitimate son of Giulia de Medici, who later became Pope Clement VII. His mother was Simonetta da Collavecchio, a woman believed to have been a servant in the Medici household, which led to occasional insults, with people mockingly calling him Alessandro Collavecchio. Alessandro was also known as Il Moro, or the Moor, because of his notably dark complexion, which led to speculation that Simonetta was African or had strong African ancestry. A French author, Jean Nestor, even claimed in a 1560 book that Alessandro's mother was a Moorish slave, though this remains unproven and is debated. The truth of Alessandro's birth may forever remain a mystery, but one thing was clear: Giulia de Medici, the future Pope Clement VII, treated him like a son. Lavish with his support and unusually protective, Giulia's favoritism only fueled the rumors swirling through Florence. He received a privileged education, was trained in the arts of diplomacy and warfare, and lived among Florence's elite. So, despite his illegitimacy, he was treated with favour and prepared for leadership. And as Giulia's power grew, especially after becoming Pope, so did Alessandro's status. In 1527, during the War of the League of Cognac, a major uprising forced the Medici family out of Florence. Alessandro fled the city and lived in exile for several years. But in 1529, Pope Clement VII reached an agreement with Emperor Charles V to restore Medici rule. After a 10-month siege, Florence fell, and by 1531, the Medici were back in power, but this time as true rulers. Alessandro was named as head of the Florentine state, and in 1532, his position was made official. He became the city's first hereditary duke under a new constitution, securing his grip on power. Alessandro's rise marked the end of the Florentine Republic and the beginning of the Medici dynastic rule. As duke, he had a mixed reputation. Supporters saw him as a protector of the poor, guided by common sense and a strong sense of justice. But his critics, especially those exiled after the 1530 siege, painted a darker picture. They called him tyrannical, incompetent, and morally corrupt, living a lavish debauched lifestyle with numerous mistresses. One such mistress was Taddea Malaspina, a noblewoman from the Massa branch of the ancient Malaspina family. From this relationship came two children, Giulio born in 1532 and Giulia born in 1535, as previously mentioned. At this time, the infants were living with their mother, attended to by numerous members of staff, with all the luxuries that came with being the Duke's children. Though both were illegitimate and held no official titles, Alessandro acknowledged them and made sure they were well taken care of. After all, they were Medici, and that alone guaranteed them a unique place within the palace walls. While there are no surviving records of him formally naming them heirs, many historians believed he had plans for them. After all, Alessandro himself had risen to power despite his illegitimate birth, and may have envisioned a future in which his children could claim vast influence or status, if not rule. In 1536, Emperor Charles V honoured a political promise to Pope Clement VII by marrying his daughter, Margaret of Austria, to Duke Alessandro de Medici. The marriage was a strategic alliance, meant to solidify Alessandro's position as Florence's ruler, and ideally, to produce legitimate heirs. Yet despite the prestige of his new bride, Alessandro remained devoted to his longtime mistress, Taddea Malespina. Like many rulers of the time, he viewed marriage as a duty of the state, not of the heart. But just as his power seemed secure, events were already unfolding that would lead to his sudden and violent end. On the night of the 6th of January 1537, Alessandro was lured into a private meeting and was murdered by his own cousin and confidant, Lorenzino de Medici. Just 26 years old, Alessandro died without a legitimate heir. Margaret of Austria was just 14 at the time, and the union had produced no children. Strangely, a few months after his death, a final child named Portia was born to another mistress whose identity has since been lost to history. Her birth, shrouded in mystery, added to one last note of intrigue to Alessandro's brief but controversial reign. With Alessandro's sudden death, power in Florence shifted overnight, and his young children were immediately caught in the storm of political shift. Just 4 years old at the time, Giulio, despite being Alessandro's only son, was passed over as successor to the duchy. Instead, Cosimo I, a member of the Medici's junior branch, was elected as a new Duke of Florence. Cosimo I, himself only a teenager when he took power, pledged to care for the orphan children of his predecessor, and at least outwardly, he kept that promise. Young Giulio was sent to the Villa di Castello, a serene family estate nestled in the hills just outside Florence. Removed from the rigid expectations of court life, she came under the watchful eye of Cosimo's mother, Maria Salviati, a devout and commanding woman with deep influence. Some might view Giulia's relocation as exile, but she wasn't alone there. She shared both her home and bedroom with Giulia de Medici, Cosimo's own illegitimate daughter and firstborn child. Just 2 years apart in age, the girls grew up more like sisters and cousins, their bond filling Castello with warm, playful energy. Maria Salviati watched over the girls with diligence, especially during a terrifying bout of fever in February 1542. Giulia, who was around 7 at this time, survived the illness, yet the 5 or 6-year-old Giulia wasn't so fortunate. Her death marked a somber chapter in the nursery's history. Young Giulia was deeply mourned by Giulia, as well as her grandmother Maria and, of course, her father Cosimo. As Giulia grew, she became fully integrated into court life. Despite being the child of the previous duke, her paternity was not seen as a disadvantage, and her descent from the main Medici line was honoured, with her father's assassination even being compared to that of Julius Caesar by Brutus. She displayed great pride in her lineage, and carried herself with notable self-assurance. She also received a comprehensive education, learning refined manners, arts, and languages that befitted a noble woman. Though illegitimate, she was still treated as a member of the family, and great care was given to her appearance and status. For example, on one occasion when Giulia was about 12 or 13, Cosimo's wife Eleonora di Toledo erupted in fury because Giulia's riding cloak was not made properly. It was the wrong length and lacked the ornamentation Eleonora had ordered. Eventually, Giulia grew up into a fine young lady, with many court observers noting that she resembled her father Alessandro, with the same strong features and curly hair. Despite her darker skin tone than most of the ladies of the court, and her speculated African heritage, many deemed her to be beautiful, and it was now that Cosimo began evaluating potential marriage prospects. In 1550, when Giulia was about 15 years old, Cosimo arranged her first marriage. Her husband was to be Francesco Cantelmo, Duke of Popoli, a nobleman of high rank. Her dowry was enormous, worth the equivalent of tens of millions of dollars in today's money. This marriage marked Giulia's formal ascension into aristocratic society. She was no longer just a ward of the Medici court, she was a duchess in her own right. 5 years later, in 1555, tragedy returned though. Francesco Cantelmo died, and Giulia was left a widow in her early 20s. In her grief, she commissioned a portrait by Alessandro Allori, one of Florence's great artists. In the painting, Giulia appears dignified, sorrowful, and proud. Next to her is visible an elaborately carved chair with a sloping arm, and art historians have given a wide range of suggestions as to what this represents. Some believe it shows a steep terrain being climbed by Hercules. Others state it symbolizes La Verna Mountain, a sacred Catholic site associated with Saint Francis of Assisi. A wide range of other theories have also been put forward, yet the one thing most agreed on is that the painting was Giulia's response to criticism of her grandmother's North African descent and her marriage to a mule driver from Collavecchio. Yet, despite all these suggestions, some art historians have come forward claiming that this portrait wasn't even of Giulia. During her widowhood, Giulia spent quite a bit of time at the Augustinian convent of San Clemente on San Gallo. Her half-sister Porzia served as the abbess there, and Giulia supported the convent financially. She was a patron of other Augustinian institutions as well, dedicating herself to acts of devotion and charity during these difficult years. In 1559, she married again, this time to Bernardetto de Medici, a cousin of Cosimo I. A year later, she gave birth to a son, whom she named Alessandro in honor of her father's name and memory. In their early years of marriage, Giulia and Bernardetto entertained lavishly and engaged in diplomatic affairs. But life in Florence was not without conflict. 3 years after the death of his wife, Eleonora di Toledo, the 46-year-old Grand Duke Cosimo I took a much younger mistress, Eleonora degli Albizzi, then about 23. Their relationship produced 2 children, a daughter born in 1566 who died in infancy, and Giovanni, born the following year and later legitimized by his father. According to court gossip, Giulia reportedly demanded to be treated as Eleonora's equal, a bold stance towards a woman who was already secretly scorned by many at court. This attitude strained her once close relationship with Cosimo, and although they later reconciled, things were never quite the same. Whatever passion Cosimo felt for young Eleonora faded quickly, and in 1567 she was forced into marrying a dishonored nobleman. Eventually, Giulia and her husband relocated to Naples in 1567, where they fought for and secured the title and lands of the Principality of Ottaviano. In Naples, Giulia's influence continued. There she managed estates, patronized religious institutions, and secured her family's future. Her descendants through her son Alessandro held the title of Princes of Ottaviano, a noble line that persists into the modern era. Even as Giulia cemented her place in history, she was slowly being forgotten by it. For centuries, she was erased from art that once celebrated her. One of the most striking examples is a painting by Pontormo of Maria Salviati with a child. For hundreds of years, many only saw Maria, but then in 1937, a restoration revealed a child had been painted out. That child, most now agree, is Giulia de Medici. In the painting, she gives an anxious expression, is close to Maria's side, and her distinctive features resemble her father Alessandro. The painting, now restored, is believed by many to be one of the first European portraits of a girl of African and European ancestry. Not everyone agrees though. Initially, most claimed it was Cosimo I, while others argue that the child is actually Giulia de Medici, noting that Giulia and Maria wouldn't have been close enough to warrant such a tender portrait. Whatever the truth of the painting, we know that her husband passed away before her, not long after the year 1576 in Naples. Giulia de Medici herself died in 1588, aged 52 or 53. Few historical records detail her final years, but her life had been interwoven with the fortunes and intrigues of one of Europe's most powerful dynasties. She was survived by her son Alessandro, who became Lord of Ottaviano and the General of the Papal States. His descendants later laid claim to the title of Grand Duke of Tuscany after the extinction of the main Medici line in 1737, though their efforts were ultimately unsuccessful. In the end, Giulia's story remains a reminder that even those cast in the shadows of history can leave a legacy that echoes for centuries. Thank you so much everyone for watching this video on Giulia de Medici. I hope you found it interesting. Let me know what you thought of her life and story down below in the comments, and if you want more videos like this on more Medici people, let me know. Check out the story on Giulia de Medici, which I've left the link of down below, which was covered around 2 months ago, I think. If you have any other suggestions, also let me know down below in the comments. And anyway, that's all from me, so I'll see all of you in the next Forgotten Life. Thanks.